Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ora News broadcast. It's now time for our daily English news edition, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. In an interview for Ora News today, the chairman of the Ad Hoc Commission for Justice Reform, Fatmir Xhafaj, has commented on the National Bureau of Investigation. He said that the Conference of Chairmen will first decide which parliamentary commission will review the draft. He also clarified that the recommendations of the Venice Commission might change the draft because it will be discussed under the new criminal changes contained in the reform package. When asked why the Bureau was placed under the authority of the state police rather than the prosecution, just like the Democratic Party wanted, Mr. Xhafaj gave this response: "The laws adopted by Parliament do not consider the desires of the parties. They are adopted according to the Constitution. It is important to see the compatibility with the current framework of the Constitution, as well as the new changes. The Bureau is not a project of the international experts. It was the idea of the government. The experts from the Ministry of Interior have done a great job. They are the authors of this draft, assisted by the international experts. It's very important that the structures be in accordance with the Criminal Code or the Code of Criminal Procedure, which is being drafted by the Ministry of Justice along with the international experts," said Mr. Xhafaj. He also made the following comments on the justice reform. "The Prime Minister has not set a deadline. He only expressed his will to adopt the reform by the end of March, but it remains to be seen." The Democrats boycotted the parliamentary commissions today, setting a number of conditions for their return. Their conditions are related to the exclusion of Armando Prenga from the parliament, the adoption of the decriminalization bylaws, and the removal of all MPs who have violated the Constitution, benefiting from public funds. The Democrats say that they will block the plenary session on Thursday and continue their boycott of the commissions if their conditions are not met. The conditions of the opposition were made public by the Democratic chairman Basha after the Democratic group meeting today. He made the following comments: "Edi Rama has sheltered criminals like Armando Prenga, who is guilty of shooting innocent people. Instead of punishing him, Edi Rama returned him to Parliament. Our confrontation will begin on Thursday with several conditions: the removal of Armando Prenga from Parliament, the adoption of the decriminalization bylaws, and the removal of the MPs who have benefited from public funds. Failure to meet these conditions will cause the Parliament to malfunction," said Mr. Basha. He went on to say that if the Prime Minister does not respond appropriately to the opposition's concerns, the Democratic protests will return. The Democratic MPs did not attend the meeting of the Parliamentary Commission today. As a result, most of the commissions did not gather because they lacked the needed quorum. It has been learned that Armando Prenga's name is still on the roster of the Socialist Party group on the Assembly's official website. This seems to contradict the statements of the councillor of the Socialist group, who has said that Prenga was excluded from the party in September. Ora News has contacted the Albanian Assembly requesting an official statement, but no response has been given. The regulation of the Assembly does not detail how the parliamentary group should act in the event that an MP is excluded. However, it clearly stipulates the action of an MP who has decided to leave the group. In this case, the MP must submit a written statement to the parliamentary group and the Bureau of the Assembly. The MP Armando Prenga was excluded from the Socialist group in September when he was accused of assaulting two people. It remains to be seen whether Armando Prenga will submit an official request to leave the Socialist Party group. The President of Albania has addressed the Constitutional Court demanding the repeal of the property law. According to President Nishani, the law is incompatible with the Constitution. The following is an excerpt from his written request. "The implementation of this law may bring consequences which will affect not only the citizens' interest, but also the state and the national interests. It seriously violates the important principles detailed in the Constitution and the European Convention of Human Rights. The President also feels that the law directly violates the rights of property owners who are waiting for the return or compensation of their property." He continues, "Since the law, which has already entered into force, seriously violates important principles like legal security, equality before the law, and property rights, As the president, I have the right to approach the Constitutional Court. The president claims that the plan offered by the law is not effective like the Court of Strasbourg requires and conflicts with the constitutional principle of legal security. The law for the return and compensation of properties was passed at the end of last year amid debate between the parties. The president initially returned the law to Parliament for review, but the majority passed it without any changes. The Association of Former Property Owners will also be appealing the law to the Constitutional Court, attempting to hamper its implementation. A group of small business owners held a protest today outside the City Hall against the taxes that were adopted in the recent meeting. They demanded that the City Hall must annul the decision, as increasing taxes are only causing more damage to their economic situation. They announced that they will appeal the case to the administrative court if there is no reaction from the City Council. This was the second protest by the small business owners in the recent days. They have declared that they will refuse to pay the taxes since they are now at risk of going bankrupt. The group did get a permit from the state police to hold the protest, and the police officers deviated the traffic today in the center of the city. One of the main taxes that the group was protesting was the new tax on public spaces. The tax was raised from 150 lek per month to 1,500 lek per square meter. According to the City Hall, this was done so that the business owners would not occupy public space that belongs to the citizens. The Assembly Speaker Ilir Meta has invited Swedish investors to consider Albania as an investment opportunity. During a meeting today with his Swedish counterpart, Meta said that Albania is aware that a more trustworthy business climate is needed. We know that legal security and rule of law are very important to the Swedish investors, he said. For this reason, I informed the Swedish Assembly Speaker of our determination to finish the justice reform. The reform will create a trustworthy environment for the foreign investors in our country, said Mr. Meta. The Swedish Assembly Speaker, Ahlin, said that Sweden will continue to offer full support to Albania on its integration path. He said, Sweden has always supported Albania on its path toward the EU. We are determined to continue to help Albania achieve its goal of becoming an EU member in the future. Of course, we will make efforts to boost our investments in Albania, but also Albanian investments in Sweden, said Ahlin. The two parliamentary delegations held talks about bilateral relations and the recent developments in the Balkan region. Also, during his visit, Meta was received by the Swedish Foreign Commission and the Commission of European Issues. The new president of Kosovo will be elected by parliament on Friday at 11 o'clock. This news was announced by the Kosovo media, which has also highlighted the fact that the chairman of the Democratic Party, Hashim Thaçi, will not be the only candidate in the race. Another member from the same party will also be running. Meanwhile, Thaçi is expected to resign from his post as the Democratic chairman. Then he will attend the extraordinary plenary session, which will be called for electing the president. If elected, he will have many challenges ahead, as the country is in deep political and economic crisis and is not making progress toward integration. The leaders of the opposition parties have already announced that they will protest against the election of Thaçi as the new president of Kosovo. They have already set up tents outside the government building to stage their protests against Thaçi and against the government. One of the party leaders has announced that the protest will continue until the government is overturned, and that they will escalate if Thaçi is elected. That's the end of our edition for this evening. Thanks for watching, and please join us again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Have a great night.